So, first of all, this is open to anybody, but I'm going to target part of it towards Katie for a start. It comes from what you were saying before about conflict is sometimes necessary. Now, Kath and I will tell you, being in that shirt, that sometimes when you know the conflict's necessary, but still going to it's pretty scary. So, I like this statement, but tell us in your thoughts about how to do it respectfully and what you reckon the benefits of doing it respectfully would be.
It's a very loaded question, hey. So, I mean, some of it is how I was explaining it, you know, to find a good time, have time, take time, and then to say, if I'm, you know, you own it, you know, if I'm honest, this is troubling me, or this is a problem for me. The reason why it's never good, like no one says I like that moment, you know, it's never great, but it's avoiding it. This is what motivates me. Avoiding it is worse, because you can't have a stronger relationship if you avoid the conflicts, and the benefits of going through that difficult time and staying respectful and staying sort of in the moment. And also trying to understand the other person, because a lot of times it's between two people, so it's two different views. So I can only bring mine, but I have to be curious about the other.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that at all?
During my time at the college as a Dean of Pastoral Care, we ran a program called a friendship resolution sort of program, and people identified that they would have a friendship fire, and to solve or to put the flames down in that friendship fire, where oftentimes with children it's like putting logs on a fire and it escalates. We had a process where they would come to me. There would only probably be two people involved generally, but I always worked with groups, but only one at a time or two at a time, to understand whether the conflict was part of a misunderstanding or a mean moment on purpose. And so it was clear, and we had a cup of tea and I had biscuits. I made homemade biscuits so they felt safe. And they were always, we always asked them to just listen to the other person speaking with respect, not thinking about their story, but just taking on board what the person was saying. And oftentimes they'd start with, I don't like it when you, whatever, and then they'd engage in sort of their little issues, and we'd sort of solve them with a sort of a listening, actively listening. And it was just a process that I actually used with adults. You know, when some people came to me, older students or their parents and family issues, it was really interesting just to sort of have that safe space where they were, what you were saying was very, in tune with how I sort of operated, Tanya, because I think giving people space to say what they feel and to have it validated, that's the most important thing that we need, the validation of our own feelings.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Any questions from the floor? Okay, Ray?
May I address a question to Shirley Ann, please?
Sure.
I loved your presentation. Put the best one, you saved it till last, your last slide. Today's risk of being awesome. And it was like the fire risk sign that you see as you come into a community. So the question is, how do we overcome our own limits, which we place on ourselves, to become awesome every day, which is what you're trying to say with this slide. Be at risk of being awesome every day. But how do we make that transition, please?
Look, I've got 3 kids. One's 22, one's 18, and one's 16. And this is a really good point, because I feel like I might have placed a lot of emphasis to them on, for example, studying. And it's about how they may not be in the same, have the same motivation as I am for certain things in life. And it's those expectations we place on others and place on ourselves. What I love about well-being is it's about you as an individual. and what level of you have to be comfortable with who you are. You can't look at other people and say, well, I haven't achieved what they have. And that's why I do like the George Clooney quote, because I would, so my daughter, she's at university, she failed a paper the other day and she sent me a text and said, oh Mum, I know you paid for my course, but I actually failed one of my papers. I'm really sorry. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but anyway. And I wrote back and said, it's okay. I would rather have you be the beautiful, kind, loving girl you are than be super intelligent and really mean to other people. And so it's about your expectations for yourself. So you've got to work out what makes me awesome. I find that I always have to keep reminding myself of things that I have this devil on my shoulder, particularly when I drink, that tells me I'm useless. It comes from years of childhood trauma, actually. And so for me, I have to tell myself my level of awesomeness is what I create about and base it and believe in myself. If other people don't see my worth, that's their problem. And so my risk of awesomeness, and the reason it's kind of red is it's dangerous, not so much green because it's amazing, but the risk, your ability to be awesome is up to you. And your ability to be awesome might be awesome for someone else, might be just getting out of bed. My awesome is just being able to be healthy and do what makes me happy. And I'm really fortunate I can do that. And I've had a hard time. I tell people I broke my back last year, and it was the worst time of my life for some other reasons. But it's about, that was the first time in my life my mental health was low. But I built myself back up to being, it's okay for my level of awesomeness today. So my awesomeness level is different to yours, but we can both be friggin' awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, give her a round of applause. That's a good answer. That opens up a doorway. I'm going to cede a question to all four of you, whoever can take it first. Throughout this morning's presentations, each one of you have talked about different subjects, but there's a common theme about mindset and how you actually go into any particular situation around mindset. So I'm going to ask somebody that hasn't spoken so far. So, Kath, you can start on your end. How important do you think it might be for mindset to play a part in any form of conflict resolution?
Thank you. Well, look, it's going to be a very critical part of that conversation. We talk about, particularly as leaders, that you listen to understand rather than listen to respond, and having the right mindset and the right perspective around the reason for that conversation with a young person or a community member or whoever is making sure that we're in a place that we can fully understand where the people we are talking to are coming from and the reasons why they may actually be feeling the way they are in that moment.
I agree with all that. I think I'd have to just think a little bit more when you sort of say mindset. It's an interesting word because we can change our mindset. And we can have positive and negative mindsets, and we can, we can track down something that becomes like a neuro pathway in our brains. It's like a chasm, if you like, so we have to change our mindsets. But I like what you were saying about, Catherine was saying about listening to understand, and I think that's the mindset. If we could, because oftentimes we listen, but we don't. We're thinking about how we're going to respond. So listening to understand, I think, is a big thing that I think we could share and help people to learn and to fully become part of ourselves.
I think mindset is really, really important. That's that kitten versus the lion there's also one with the fish with the fin making it feel like it's a shark when it's only a little goldfish. One of the things that I think really would help peace in the world is if people loved themselves to the point where they didn't get jealous or have negative feelings towards other people of feeling envy or jealousy. As soon as you love yourself, you feel happy for you, but you're happy for others because you realise that everyone's swimming in their own lane and we're not in competition with each other, and it's about harmony and working together and understanding who you are. And I normally put up a slide that a thing that's great to do is to do a personality test to work out what makes you tick and what makes you not get on with others versus really liking someone. And I found that as soon as I learned who I was, where I've come from and what I'm about, I don't get the emotion of jealousy, and I'm really truly happy for other people. And that's why mindset and understanding that you're awesome, everyone else can be too, would lead to more peace and harmony in the world, I believe, less conflict.
What can I possibly add? What I was thinking from when Catherine was speaking is that, when we go in to listen, we have to, and it goes a little bit along with what you're saying as well, we have to really know ourselves. And some of that is not just how great we are and how amazing we are, but it's also the shadow sides of that. So, for example, understanding our biases and where we're leaning, because they're real things and they are only harmful if we don't understand them. So if I understand my biases, and so what we do a lot and when we work with teachers is that one of the first things is to say, who are you in the moment? Because if you're going in to maybe resolve a racist comment or something like that, you actually have to understand maybe there's a slight bit of racism in you, and if you don't recognize that, you're probably going to do more harm engaging in a situation. So that's part of that awareness, that the shadow side of ourselves. And then if we recognize it, we can obviously learn to grow and become better in that, and maybe move on. And because that's luckily not like personalities, they don't stay, our biases can change.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic answer. There's a number of different thoughts when it comes to this sort of mindset. I'm going to go one more on this one as well, whereby you talked about biases. I love you talked about that, what you take into a conversation and being aware of that. A lot of people are aware of their biases in a negative, but a lot of people are not necessarily of their biases in the positive. Can we have a few comments on that one? Okay, look, there's a famous quote by Marianne Williamson, and I won't do the whole thing because it goes for about half a page, where she said, it's not our darkness that scares us, it's our light. If you remember that quote, that's what I'm thinking on this one. So we'll start with Cindy. Stop.
I might just need a minute to think about that one, Tony. That's a good way of looking at things. I'll pass it down until I think.
I think it depends on the issue in ourselves, focusing on our strengths. There seems to be a thing that we find it really hard to say we're good at things and value ourselves. And that's probably come from, childhood, mums and dads, the way they spoke to us, our upbringing, our careers and all those sort of things. So knowing the strengths that we have and focusing on the strengths and then identifying our weaknesses and working on those. So that's what we need to be doing. I think it's that strength and weakness. Does that make sense?
I think I love that, and I now that I'm reflecting on this difficult concept, I think for me it's knowing, like every now and then when I interact with young people, I realize that I give them an opportunity that they often not given. I can just see, like I was talking about the boys that are used to being in trouble, and then I treated them, and they were not in trouble, and it was not hard for me actually. So that was my positive bias, is that I always know that there's gold in a person. I just know that. And so the longer I think about that and the more I've known that about myself, I intentionally go into situations going, this is what I bring to that situation.
Wow, thank you very much. I mean, I threw you a bit of a hairy one, okay? We're running out of time, but I will take one more question. Evelyn, over here, please. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you had the microphone already. Yep, where you go.
They gave me the mic. That's a scary concept. I remember many years ago hearing one of the Buddhist dinners talking about the different religions, talking about the different versions of the Golden Rule. What I was picking up with what all you lovely ladies were saying is something very similar to what the Eurasians were saying. I don't know if you know about the faith, the Eurasians. They basically worship the Greek goddess of confusion. And I do love the comment that's saying there's no goddess but Eris and Murphy is her consort. One of the Eurasian phrases is to commit random acts of kindness and senseless beauty. I have seen it around the place, making random compliments and things like that. And I've been trying to encourage people when they're going around just to make, we go out shopping and someone might have a fantastic message on their mask or look fantastic in a dress, and I just say, look, I'm sorry, I just have to say, you look absolutely fantastic. And I have seen people who look like they're having a bad day and they just burst out and grin, and a couple of seconds out of my time. But then it also causes the change because you're then looking for something to be complimentary about. Looking for someone who's saying, oh, that outfit looks fantastic on you, that hairstyle looks good, I love that colour of your hair, and that type of thing. And that, again, as I said with the Golden Rule, I'm pretty certain there are other faiths that have that type of concept, but that's, random acts of kindness and senseless beauty. It's putting money in someone's parking meter as you go past. It's paying for the car behind you in the toll road. There's a lot of little things that can be done just to spread that little bit of positivity to counter with the toxicity we got. I was just wondering what you think about that.
Anybody?
I think I agree with you totally, and I think everybody here would, because that sense of kindness. We at school we say, try hard, be kind. If the world was just kind to each other, we wouldn't sort of face what we're facing. So those random acts of kindness, I think it's giving and receiving. And like you were saying, we don't give to receive, but we receive. It's like filling people's buckets, that you get your own bucket filled. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I was listening back over about the darkness and the light thing, and I was reminded of Trent Dalton's new book, Lola in the Mirror, which is a story about a girl that lives on the street. And she says in that book, you can't see the light in me unless you know about the darkness as well. And that really affected me because we often ignore the darkness, but the light is brighter when we know about the darkness. So it's a good book, everyone, Lola in the Mirror. Very good. Yeah.
And Evelyn's selling copies at the desk later on, yeah.
Just on that, I think that's so true, and that's why having someone or something to talk to and tell your story to, even if you can't do it publicly. I've been talking for 20 years about different topics, and a lot of people, probably Tony, has heard ones where I've actually talked about myself and my traumatic background, because it's a way of healing for me, but it's a way of people understanding where I've come from. And I think understanding people's, and everyone, you can have someone in the same family experience life or view life in a different way. So my darkness is different to my sister's darkness, and the light, but it's about then drawing a line in the sand sometimes too, and saying, I can be a different person, or I can reflect on how that makes me stronger. The trauma makes me stronger. And but you've got to reach that point of realising I'm ready to talk about the darkness to allow the light in. And I love Dolly Parton, who said something like, it takes sunshine and rain for a plant to grow. It's that we wouldn't be who we are if we were always, everything was 100% rosy, but it's how you view life, and it comes back to mindset.
Thank you. It's a bit like the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. If you actually let it out of the chrysalis without it going through that pressure, it doesn't get all the fluid go to its wings, and so it will never fly. So exactly right. So I think we'll end it up there.
Yes.
Hang on, no, we've got one over there. Sorry, thank you. Go.
Oh, thank you. The happy life is land you have and rights you have as well. And the history is the childhood memories and the places you lived in. If you lost your memories, your places, your land, what we do to be awesome, to be fine. I'm not talking about that as pessimistic or optimistic. Just I'm talking about the people who lost everything. What we do, there are 4 presentations we've heard that or listened, and that's my small question. Thank you.
So if I take that you're figuring that somebody that's lost everything, where do we go from there, sort of thing? Is that what we're talking about here? All right. Anybody want to? Yeah.
I think that's such a valuable question, and it goes a little bit with the idea of do we put harmony over something or do we let it grow? And so I think it is really important to lament and to grieve and to acknowledge, because to just move on and just to say that something is awesome just doesn't make it so. I spent a bit of time I did in as part of my master's. I did a bit of research on post-traumatic stress and grief and all of that. And it was very interesting because I came across a concept of post-traumatic growth, and that actually a bigger percentage of people, grow from hardship. But you can't create that. You have to let it grow. That's why it's called growth. And I think in our faith communities as well, we have to be very careful that we don't just say, we'll pray about it and it'll be good, or God's got this, or whichever form of positive spirituality you may grab. That's beautiful, but I've also experienced, and I think a lot of people can identify with that, is that sometimes that actually shuts us down, and actually then we are very lonely in our grief and in our hurt. So to acknowledge and to look someone in the eye, and to see, I see your sadness and I see your longing and I see that you don't belong, and how can I be with you now? And we'll see where that goes.
Just another thing that would be helpful if you have experienced that whole sort of devastation of losing everything is find others that have been in a similar situation, that whole support with people that you feel can appreciate and understand what you've been through. And that's why there are support groups work well. For example, if you're an alcoholic and want to quit, a lot of people go to Alcoholics Anonymous, or you join others who have an understanding of what you've been through, because there's nothing worse than someone who hasn't been through something you've experienced saying, you'll be right, mate, suck it up. And so finding others that have experienced that can be very useful. Just another pitch for Momentum. Our one-on-one coaches are there to try and help people get into life again, particularly if they've experienced social isolation. Our culturally and linguistically diverse community have often come to Australia, find it difficult to assimilate because of racism or things like that. It's that getting into the community and feeling connected is one of the ways to be a better you.
Yes, I'm just reminded of a beautiful Japanese story of a shattered pot, and where they, piece the pieces together with gilded glue. So it's not ever the same, but it's, we grow out of the challenge of being shattered and broken. But we can put ourselves together, and what people see is the gold. So, there's always that sort of, as an outcome for all our lives. I mean, at some point in time, we're all shattered by grief and change and all these experiences, loss of loved ones, the tragedy of what we're experiencing worldwide with all the war-torn countries. It's all grief and it's sad. And I suppose we can learn from it. It's an opportunity for learning and focusing on putting ourselves together, but with the gilded glow.
Well, thank you, ladies. Just to finish that off, just something that you guys reminded me of, and you may well have heard this story many times, and I apologise, I can't remember the actual reference. But there's a story that happened apparently about the end of World War II, where a gentleman who was a businessman, very successful, his family had gone through the war, he'd been separated from his family, he'd been separated from his twin brother and all the rest of it. His life before the war wasn't very flash, but he'd made something of himself, and he was very successful, and he got off the train at London this particular day, beautifully dressed, briefcase and all the rest of it, and he came across what we would probably call a hobo or a homeless person or something like that, sitting on the platform, and he's looked over and suddenly realised it was his twin brother, right? He hadn't seen him since they were like yay big, separated and all the rest of it. And he walks over and he looks at him, he goes, "Bill, is that you?" He said, "Yes, it's me." And he goes, "How did you end up like this?" And he said, "You remember our father was an alcoholic, and I became an alcoholic because of it." He said, "How did you end up so successful?" He said, "Because my father was an alcoholic and I didn't want to be like him." Same circumstances, two different people. Thank you, ladies. Absolutely informative session. Give them a round of applause.